Friends, I just pressed the Let's Go Live button, so let's wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet. Man, it has been a day or two. We were not here on Friday, and I missed you so. But let's make sure the tubes are working themselves out. Sometimes they get a little extra clogged over the long breaks, the long hiatus. Are we good over on the tubes? Let's see, are we good over on the locals? Locals was having some catch-up problems this morning. All right, looks like we're good over there. Amazing, it's working. So that means we can go ahead and get started. So let's do it, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live, the show that spotlights misconduct involving police, prosecutors, and politicians. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney, and today we're talking about Trump's presidential immunity. We're going to dive into the motion that came out on a Friday, and it is a big one. It's about 48 pages. It's a memo, not an emotion, but the judge came out, issued an order denying. We're not expecting much out of Judge Chutkan or Judge Chutkan's courtroom, but we are going to go through it because she is rejecting Trump's attempt to get this entire case dismissed via the constitutional objections that we've covered here and via the presidential immunity provisions of the Constitution that we've talked about. And so we are going to go through all of that. Liz Cheney is out promoting her book, and gosh, we got a couple clips from her today, unfortunately. She's talking about the end of democracy, and I'm still waiting to see if she's going to throw her hat into the ring in some way, shape, or form. I think she will, as long as she doesn't think that she's a spoiler or something like that to get Trump elected. But man, she's hitting it hard. And Trump actually responded to her. And so we'll see what's going on the January 6th case, all in the first segment. And we're looking forward to getting into that. Then we're going to get into what's happening in New York because Donald Trump has submitted an appeal in the New York Court of Appeals, which, as we know here, is the Supreme Court in New York. So the way that it works there is the Supreme Court is actually the first level court. Then you have the Appellate Court. Then you have the Court of Appeals, which is the Supreme Court. And so Trump and his people submitted an appeal to say, hey, Judge Engoron, so many judges, Areola, is very concerned about Trump's speech about attacking his principal law clerk called Allison Greenfield. And so we're going to see what Trump and his team said. My understanding is that there was a ruling that just came fresh out of the oven on this case. In other words, they requested a stay of the gag, and that has not happened. So they are going to have oral arguments on this and further developments on this, but the gag is not going to be stayed pending the outcome of the appeal. So we've got that cooking. Then we've got MSNBC's #1 show, Inside Jen Psaki. She'll be appearing today. She's having this conversation saying that Trump is very dangerous. And I thought this clip was funny because she's saying that you have to be cognizant of his Truth Social posts and things that he is saying, are saying could be very dangerous. And she gives us this one example that you might not think is dangerous or that is a problem, but she wants to reassure you that it is and why it's dangerous to her and journalists. And the language against Trump is very, very aggressive these days. And so we're going to go through it and see what Psaki has to say about it. We've also got another update on the January 6th cases, not the Chutkan case, but a separate series of cases where Trump is being sued, right? People are suing Trump for his roles on the January 6th day, saying he was somebody who maybe caused them injury or caused them damages and so on. And so civilly suing him, right? Just like we had with Miss Bergdorf out there in New York when what's-her-face, apparently walked into a dressing room and got accosted that nobody remembers 25 years ago anyways. So we've got this. We'll have Trump now being sued again by some other individuals. We'll take a look at that. And Trump was trying to get this case dismissed. And of course, that was denied out of Washington, D.C. And so we'll see what Trump says on appeal, what he said on appeal and what the D.C. Circuit Court said on appeal, because it's opening him up to further litigation on this case. He's actually being sued for damages, just like we saw with Ms. Bergdorf. So we're going to get into that. We'll hear from Liz Cheney again. And so as you can see, my friends, we've got a lot to get to today. It's a beautiful Monday. It is a beautiful, fresh new month. We're popping up. Well, I mean, technically it was on Friday, but we weren't here on Friday. So it's fresh for us. It's still fresh. It's the 4th. And so we're grateful that you're joining us. Hopefully your December is off to an amazing start. We had a great stream with our members this morning. We were talking about all sorts of fun stuff to get caught up on the affairs out there in the world. But we also have Jim Jordan sent a subpoena over to somebody that we've talked about here a lot. His name is Rob Flaherty, and he was the guy who was censoring all of us from the White House for some time after Joe Biden allegedly became president. And so we talked about that. Jim Jordan and the Judiciary Committee, they sent a subpoena over to Rob Flaherty, and we read through that this morning with our members, and that was a fun Membos stream. And so we love doing Membos streams. And so if you want to become a Membo, you can join us. watchingthewatchers.locals.com is the place where you can do that. Now, before we get into the show and the meat and potatoes on the day, definitely want to tell you about our friends at Field of Greens, because I know, the apples, holiday season's coming up, right? I mean, Christmas is right around the corner, holidays, all the things. I have to forewarn you, apples that you have in your holiday pie, okay? They might taste amazing, but that is not equal to 5 servings of fruits and vegetables. I know, it's true. Even if you have 5 slices, okay? Doesn't count. The Mayo Clinic says that if you want help to prevent heart disease, if you want to lower your blood pressure, if you want to lower your cholesterol, eat 5 servings of fruits and vegetables every day, which I know that's almost impossible. It's a lot of fruit. But that's why you need Field of Greens, my friends. Very simple. Every fruit in Field of Greens and every vegetable was medically selected by doctors to support your vital organs like your heart, your lungs, your kidneys, and your immune systems. And the holidays are here, and you need to stay healthy. Plus, when you get Field of Greens, you're going to notice your skin feels healthier, your hair, nails all look healthier too. Field of Greens is quite simply the simplest way to get those daily fruits and vegetables, and it tastes amazing. So let me get you started. 15% off your first order. Very easy. Go to fieldofgreens.com, and when you go over there, don't forget to use code Robert. That way you can save 15% off your first order. And of course, this statement, right, has not been evaluated by the FDA, right? So do your own due diligence. This product is not intended to diagnose or treat or cure or prevent any diseases. So be very, very cognizant of what you're doing out there. Talk to your doctor if you have any questions about it. But Field of Greens, good stuff. Just go over there, fieldofgreens.com. Take a look at the label. You'll see. It's like, oh my gosh, it's right here. Look at it. Look at all these things in the ingredient list. I mean, it's just jam-packed. So, and it's vegetables. Like, read, it's all vegetables. So check it out, fieldofgreens.com. Don't forget to use code Robert. That way you can save your 15% off at checkout, and it's good stuff. Also, we're going to get into the show today. If you have any questions about where to get these PDFs, best place to get them, robertgovea.com. All the red lines are there. All the show reports are there. There's a mind map tutorial if you want to access the mind map. We have a new December mind map, so we're going to be fixing the mind map link here shortly. And it's a lot of good stuff over there, robertgovea.com. All right. Now let's get going on the day, because we've got some meat and potatoes to get into. And let me just make a slight adjustment on this little situation here. And now we can get to it. Donald Trump's presidential immunity has been denied by guess who? Oh, Judge Chutkan. We weren't expecting much out of this courtroom, but this one came down, and it's not only the motion to dismiss the January 6th prosecution brought by Jack Smith based on presidential immunity, but she also wrapped in there another issue that we've talked a lot about here, which is the constitutional basis for dismissing the case. And there's all sorts of reasons why what Jack Smith was alleging that Donald Trump did, what he said was criminal in the indictment. They said it's not criminal. The Constitution protects things like free speech, free expression, free association, and Jack was trying to criminalize free speech. So Chutkan kind of wrapped up both of these issues into one motion, denying the motion to dismiss. It's a 48-pager. We'll take a look at it. Then we'll follow it up with some other J6 psychos like Cheney, who is out here on her book tour after she got thrown out of Congress. Embarrassingly bad performance there in Wyoming. And Donald Trump will respond to Liz, who's talking about her TDS, which we know she has. So we're going to get right into the motion and see what's coming out of Judge Chutkan's courtroom. Again, January 6th, Washington, D.C. Trial scheduled for March, okay? We've got one day before Super Tuesday is when we're going to have Chutkan holding trial. And so Trump, of course, is going to be appealing all of this, and we're going to have a bunch of back and forth on a lot of these issues. But this is the motion. Now, I'm sorry, the memo. This is the order, which is just the one-pager. It says, all right, for the reasons set forth in the accompanying memo, here, Donald Trump's motion to dismiss based on presidential immunity, which was its own filing, which we read, And Donald Trump's other filing, motion to dismiss based on the Constitution, which they don't care much about here, is denied. Both of them denied, right? So she wrapped them up into one. Now, this is from Tanya Chutkan, United States District Court judge, the same judge who refused to recuse herself despite making statements adverse to Trump when she was sentencing other J6ers, saying things like, you know, I wonder why that man is still out, or I wonder why the person responsible has not been, indicted or standing before me or something like that, right? That somebody else was out there. We all go, who is she talking about? Who's the only other person? Oh yeah, it's Trump. So we know where she stands on this. Now, this is the memo. You can see it's a 48-pager out of D.C. We're going to hit the highlights on it. You see, this is from Judge Chutkan writing to both parties, and this is a big one. We have, just as a little quick note, we also have other pending motions to dismiss that are very likely going to be denied, as we predict. So here, this was the constitutional motion. We know there's also a statutory motion to dismiss. We also know there's motions based on defining the scope of Jack Smith's team that are going to be relevant for discovery and so on. So here, the judge says, as we expected, the court will deny both motions. All right. So here's what the judge says. Listen. Now, at the motion to dismiss stage, the court assumes the truth of the indictment's allegation. And this is true, right? This is just regular stuff in criminal law. A motion to dismiss a government's indictment is a tough bridge to cross, right? They don't just dismiss cases. So they're going to say that everything in the indictment is true. And if we believe that everything is true and you can overcome that, then it'll be worthy of a dismissal. But you can imagine that's a tall, tall burden. So Chutkan writes, here, Trump contends that the charges in his indictment are based on his public statements and tweets about the election and its certification. He says it's about communicating with the DOJ. He says it's about talking about appointing things like AGs, which are within his duties. They say communications with state officials about the federal election and the exercise of their official duties with respect to the election also are included, saying that Trump was just talking to the VP. Trump was just organizing alternate slates of electors and other things. And those things don't sound like criminal. We see here that Chutkan continues, says, those generalized descriptions from Trump and his defense, they fail to properly portray the conduct with which he has been charged. Accordingly, I'm going to give you my interpretation of what he's been charged with. So she doesn't like Trump's characterization of the indictment. So she says, let me show you what I think it is. All right. Okay, Judge, here we go. She says defendant Trump was the 45th president running for election. Now, despite having lost that election, she says, he was determined to remain in power. And she's all just citing the indictment. Okay, all of these are indictments. She's basically reading from the indictment again. Okay, we don't need to read it all. So she says here, right, he knew what those claims were false. He widely disseminated them anyways. He made knowingly false claims that appear legitimate. I think they're going to have a real tough time proving that. That's the mens rea. That's the mental state. How do you get inside Trump's head and tell us that he knew that the election was truthful and honest and definitely not rigged, but was just lying to us? How is that possible? Because we fast forward now in 2023, going into 24, and suddenly there's a lot more evidence that it was rigged. And we're all pointing our fingers back at these people who are saying this and saying, we told you so. See, here it is. So now they say that we're going to go through the indictment. We'll fast forward through it. She says that Trump also pursued unlawful means of discounting legitimate votes and subverting the election results. Specifically, he targeted a bedrock function. Okay, now we're asking ourselves, like, what is the conduct? We have to distinguish between speech and action and speech and conduct. And so what is he doing? He's targeting a bedrock function, which is the certification of the results. And she says the indictment tells us how the ECA works. And of course, we know that the Electoral Count Act, the ECA, it was all modified after the fact, right? Trump said that Mike Pence had a thing that he could do. Now, we were here on the record saying, I'm not so sure about that, right? I think that's kind of questionable, but it is questionable. That's the point. It wasn't clear. And you can always make that argument. In fact, that's what lawyers do every day, is to take ambiguous statements and drive a truck through them. So that's what Trump was doing. That's what his lawyers were doing. And we know that you could drive a truck through it because they patched the hole up after the fact. After Mike Pence, this is what the vice president does. We don't want that to happen again. Let's make it ultra clear because it wasn't in the first place. So they say Trump, okay, along with 6 co-conspirators, undertook efforts to impair, obstruct, defeat that process through dishonesty, fraud, and deceit. Now, that took 5 forms. 1, false claims of election fraud, which is all speech and opinion, and I think he's entitled to make those things. They said baseless fraud claims. I totally disagree. What are you talking about? Defendant pushed officials in certain states to ignore the popular vote, disenfranchise millions of voters. Yeah, but that's on the pretext that the election was fraudulent. Hello. In other words, it's not ignoring the popular vote. It is having an actual election. And the fraud election would show that the popular vote is not what you say it is. That's the point. Dismiss legitimate electors, right? If the election was what we say it was. And the same thing goes on. You can see the pattern. Then they organize false slates of electors, which happens all the time. They've done it many times. Democrats have done this even back in the Nixon-Kennedy race in Hawaii, I believe that, or LBJ. Now here, then they cause these fraudulent electors to transmit their false certificates, as they do in all contested elections. Nobody else has been indicted for it. Third, they attempted to use power and authority of the DOJ to conduct sham election investigations. So they're mad that they weaponized the DOJ. Is that what they're saying? Yeah, all right. So they don't like that they were investigating electoral fraud. Now, they call it a sham. I don't think it was a sham. I wish Bill Barr would have done something about it, quite frankly. And a lot of these people, we were screaming from the rooftops about them changing the rules, right, before it even occurred. What happened in Michigan, where the FBI came up and seized all those strip mall operations and just bundled those up and threw those in the garbage disposal? What happened to those? All right. So fourth, using knowingly false claims of election fraud, they attempted to convince the VP to use Trump's fraudulent electors, reject legitimate electoral votes, and send these for the states to review, all which was articulated as a process that could have been contemplated. And even Ted Cruz was calling for a pause, right? A lot of things were happening, which is why they needed to set off the distraction event, which was J6. So we fast forward through it. So the judge says, all right, I've summarized it again. She probably really enjoyed that. It's probably like a, late night cup of wine, drafting this thing up. Oh gosh, it's like a romance novel, So based on the conduct, the indictment charges Trump with 4 counts and so on. Here's the legal standard, says, all right, when the defense moves to dismiss the indictment based on some sort of a defect, we've got to make sure we're doing our due diligence on this thing, right? We don't just dismiss cases here. Judge Chutkan continues. She says, all right, Donald Trump contends here, we're going to address executive immunity first, presidential immunity, says that here Trump contends that the Constitution grants him absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for actions performed within the outer perimeter of his official responsibility. Okay, think of this almost like qualified immunity for the police. They do something within the confines, you can't sue them. Trump's saying same thing here. He says, I served as president so long as he was not both impeached and convicted for those actions. And we've talked about this here many times. Constitution says that you impeach first in the House, then you convict in the Senate. And then once that is done, once both of those things are happening, then the conviction stands and the person is then subject to the other prosecutions that you'll find elsewhere in the country for the actual crimes. But you do that so you make sure that it's not political, it's not partisan, right? You got to have a 2/3 vote to convict in the Senate. It's a much higher standard. And so you give him the literal indictment and conviction. And you don't want all of the rest of the AGs and all these people to leapfrog over and just indict the president, right? Somebody just indicts the president and they can take him out of play. So the proper mechanism for indicting a president for his presidential conduct is through impeachment and conviction. Happened twice. They didn't get him. So now they're defaulting to something else. So Chutkan continues. He says, well, the Constitution's text and structure and history don't support that contention. She didn't really hardly explain it. No court or any other branch of government has ever accepted it. And this type of stuff that you hear is just wild, right? Because, do you know why? Because has a president ever been indicted? And has anybody in the history of the entire country ever made this argument? No. The president this is new, right? When's the last time when's a president been indicted criminally in the United States multiple times by these people? Never. And this court will not so hold. Well, thanks. So she's saying nobody else has ever done it, so I'm not going to do it. He said, well, you're the first one with the case. Whatever immunities a sitting president may enjoy, the United States has only one chief executive at a time, and that position does not confer a lifelong get-out-of-jail-free pass. That's fun, Chutkan. Former presidents enjoy no special conditions on their federal criminal liability. They don't? It's in the Constitution. They talk about impeachment for high crimes and misdemeanors, and there's a whole process that's articulated. Let's see what she says. She's going to go through this. We'll watch. Former president, she says, Trump may be subject to federal investigation, indictment, prosecution, conviction, and punishment for any criminal acts undertaken while in office. So she's setting this new standard here out of the court. And this is, like this could be a historic case, honestly. I mean, well, first of all, this is a historic case, but she is picking the standard that she is going to try to etch into the history books. That presidential immunity does not exist for criminal conduct. And this would be, I mean, this is a great precedent, by the way, for the DOJ, the FBI, and all of the other agencies who might want to control a president. Because if they just indict him, then he's under, like, it puts the pressure on the president to be subject to the whim of any other prosecutor anywhere. They just prosecute him and that's it. So the whole point, and this is one of the dumbest phrases we've been hearing here, and I've been saying this for months now, that when they say that the president is not above the law, it's like literally, yes, he is, literally. He has the pardon power, he has the opinion power, he's the commander in chief, he can just order people to go into battle and die, right? Somebody gets a conviction, he says, no, you're wrong. Pardoned, gone, I'm above you. And it's all articulated, we've gone through this many times. But the judge is now, and with that, okay, because you need the logic of somebody who is the chief executive of the entire branch of the federal government, which is supreme to the rest of the duality that we have here with the states, that person has to have a root position. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Otherwise, the people, and this is a benefit for American democracy, by the way, so that if we say exactly what is happening right now, if we say that the deep state, the DOJ, whatever you want to call it, right, the blob in Washington, if they've become corrupted, we want to be able to supersede them with our vote and install our candidate to clean up the mess. That's the whole point. But if now we can just, let's say we get Donald Trump elected and then they just indict him again, first day in office, and indict him again, and it derails the whole thing. The standard is insane, right? But she is cobbling this together because it's Trump. So let's get into it. Obviously, it's illogical, but here's what she says. In interpreting the Constitution, courts ordinarily begin with its text. Let's see what she does. But there's no provision in the Constitution conferring the immunity that the defendant claims. Well, we would say it's in the impeachment provision. Let's see if she even talks about it. The Supreme Court has already noted the absence of explicit constitutional guidance in Nixon on whether the president possesses any immunity. The executive branch has likewise recognized that there is no explicit immunity from criminal sanctions or any other officer. Again, like none of this has ever happened before, right? So all this is kind of, you get the gist. There is no presidential immunity clause, says the judge. And the lack of constitutional text is no accident, as the framers explicitly created immunity for other officials, right? Of course. And the Constitution speech and debate clause provides that senators, representatives, shall in all cases except treason, felony, breach of the peace, be privileged from arrest during their attendance. And so, okay, so she's given us some other examples for like legislative immunity. Great, speech and debate, got that. And others protected governors until they were out of office and so on. Nor is the Constitution silent on the question that because its drafters or ratifiers assume the president would enjoy immunity. Of course not. But you have to go through the impeachment mechanism. I'm going to blow a gasket if she doesn't get to it. All right, I better calm down and let's just see if she gets to it before I blow a gasket. All right, to the contrary, America's founding generation envisioned a chief executive wholly different from the unaccountable, almost omnipotent rulers at the time. Wow, she's going to take us into the Federalist Papers. That's nice, Judge. Okay, you don't need to go back all that far. All we need to know is about impeachment. Okay, here we go, finally. All right, calm down, Rob. Lacking an express constitutional provision, Trump hangs his textual argument for immunity on the impeachment clause, but she says it cannot bear the weight. Here you go. Judgment in cases of impeachment, which as we know is for high crimes and misdemeanors, shall not extend further than to removal from office and disqualification to hold and enjoy office of honor, trust, or profit under the United States. But the party convicted shall nevertheless be liable, right? Convicted, ED, and subject to impeachment, trial, and punishment according to the law. So it's about as clear as I can see on the face of it. Impeachment does not go further than to removal of office and disqualification. So you're impeached first, but after you're impeached, but the party convicted, so again, House of Representatives, then the Senate, shall nevertheless be liable. So you got to go through those things first, but then not. Now, from this language, Chutkan says, Trump concludes that the president may be charged only by indictment in cases where the president has been impeached and convicted by the Senate. But Trump is not president, and reading the clause to grant absolute criminal immunity to former presidents would contravene its plain meaning, original understanding, and common sense. Amazing. So she's just going to take Trump's status now and say that doesn't apply to him. It's so insane because the conduct that they're saying, he was still the president on January 6th, by the way. So here she says the clause has two parts. The first limits the penalties of the impeachment to removal and disqualification, and then opens you to criminal liability. That limit marked a deliberate departure from British tradition, and she's going to lecture us on that. Both parts of the clause undercuts Trump's interpretation of it. The first clause begins by defining the clause's scope. Judgment in cases of impeachment, okay, indicating that the clause is aimed at identifying the permissible penalties associated with impeachment itself. The second case confirms that purview. Rather than stating that the party convicted shall only then be liable, the clause states that the party convicted shall nevertheless be liable. At the founding, as of now, nevertheless means notwithstanding. Notwithstanding, that meant without hindrance or obstruction from. Okay, so do you see how she just changed that word right in front of us? She says, well, I went back and I found a different word. So nevertheless means notwithstanding, and notwithstanding that without hindrance or obstruction from. So incredible. Rather than stating that the party shall only then be liable, Constitution says nevertheless be liable. And so that word is just what that means. And so she can just swap it in there. So the word says in the impeachment judgment clause, the word nevertheless in the second part thus signifies that the first part, constraining the impeachment penalties, does not bear on whether the party would also be subject to the criminal prosecution. Wild. It means the exact opposite of how it reads. Isn't that incredible? So she says, let's read it again just from the constitutional perspective. So she says this word, nevertheless, means notwithstanding, or let's read it. So, but the party convicted shall notwithstanding, okay, shall nevertheless be liable, subject to the indictment according to the law. So the first, she says that this supersedes everything else, including the but. So you can just skip right over to that. The party convicted shall be liable. Basically, it's like deleting the word, right? It's like without a hindrance. Basically, you could just delete this whole word, nevertheless. And actually this word too is what I would say. The party convicted, it's not a but, right? It's the party convicted shall be liable and subject to the indictment trial according to the law. So it's almost like those limitations on that, the limitations of this second phrase, which would make it harder to actually indict somebody outside the law. She just neuters that entire phrase, just neuters it. And you watched her do it. You went back, found a different memo. What did she cite this? She says, this is a dictionary of the English language. Okay, so this person is now the authority for changing the entire Constitution. Just to be clear about this, okay? So Samuel Johnson, he wrote a book called A Dictionary of the English Language. That guy, probably cool guy. He wrote a book, 4th edition, 1773. This one is the 1978 edition. So I don't know what, you have to look that up. It's available at that address, so you can go take a look at it, and at that address. So Samuel Johnson writes, and he explains nevertheless and what that means. Now that's curious. Now, look, I'm not an English major. Maybe you English people out here, right? This is something I would definitely look into if I was doing some research in opposition to this. But this would be, what is this? Neverthelesses, like it's got the apostrophe there. Is that the same as nevertheless? Whatever that word is? Nevertheless is, or is that some, I don't know what that is, right? I don't know what that means or what that is. Never seen that. Sound like Bill O'Reilly. I never seen that. No words there. There are no words there. What is that? So I don't even know what that means. And a dictionary of the English language apparently defines that. And so that's how we got from you have to be indicted in the House and convicted in the Senate to now that whole phrase is totally neutered and any person in America who's a prosecutor can just indict the president for whatever. Crazy. So that's what Chutkan's doing. And when I talk to people and they say, how's this J6 case going? And I say, man, I've never seen anything like it. This is what I'm talking about. Like they're contorting the Constitution. That whole phrase just got neutered and transmogrified into whatever Judge Chutkan wanted so she could just escape liability here. Give Trump remove his immunity. So she says, as discussed below, the clause's manifest purpose and the originally understood effect was therefore, she says, to permit criminal prosecution in spite of the prior adjudication by the Senate and to forestall a double jeopardy argument. Now that's quite a different situation, she says, than establishing impeachment and conviction as a prerequisite. And she says what Trump cites doesn't move the needle. He talks about Alexander Hamilton saying in the Federalist that the president, in that Federalist paper, Hamilton said, the president of the United States would be liable to be impeached, tried, and upon conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors removed from office, and would afterwards be liable to prosecution in the ordinary course of the law, right? Which is a perfect explanation of how this phrase worked. Thanks, Alexander, for explaining it. That's makes sense, right? You go through the political process first before you just turn the person loose to the other justice systems. Would afterwards be liable, and punishment in the ordinary course of the law. So it's unordinary, right? It's different. First, you got to get him through that. It's like a political review. You know, hey, we're going to do a review now for you. And if we found okay, then you're going to be subject to greater penalties. Okay. And you go through it. Here, what the judge says, and that the president would at all times be liable to impeachment, trial, dismission, incapacity to serve, and to forfeiture of life and estate by subsequent prosecutions in the common course of the law, right after the fact. But the judge says, I don't like those statements. She says, those statements merely echo the clause's clarification, okay, clarifying this, that the prosecution may follow impeachment. Not that they have to, they may. They do not say that those events must happen in that order. We don't have to go through an impeachment if we don't want to. And she just gets rid of it like that. Second, Trump cites founding father James Wilson's remark during the ratification debates that the president is amenable to the laws in his private character as a citizen and his public character by impeachment. But Wilson was referring to a president in office. And that's entirely consistent to a president returning to public life and that being subject to criminal prosecution. She says there is no evidence that any of the Constitution's drafters or ratifiers intended or understood former presidents to be criminally immune unless they had been impeached and convicted. That's literally what Hamilton just said. Much less a widespread consensus that the impeachment judgment clause would have that effect. There is, she literally just cited it. There's no evidence that they drafted or intended them to be criminally immune. Like they didn't say that phrase, but you can just read this out of the text. I mean, it's like, I can't even. Here is what Hamilton said. Afterwards, he would be liable to prosecution and punishment in the ordinary course of the law. So, if this person, let's just add a not, or let's just reverse the phrase, if the president of the United States is not liable under impeachment, then there is no afterwards, okay? So if he is not impeached, tried, and convicted, there is no afterwards of that. And she just says that that is no evidence that he had that opinion. It's bizarre. It's like the page before, Judge. It's right there. Look, I'll draw a red line for you. Right up here. We'll just keep going. Up, 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 up. Come on. Right there. It's right there. Afterwards. Good Lord, there's evidence. Okay, so in addition to lacking textual or historical support that is on the preceding page, Trump's interpretation of the clause collapses under the application of common sense. Okay, let's see. For one, his reasoning is based on the logical fallacy of denying the antecedent. Oh, gosh. Here she says from that statement, if the animal is a cat, it can be a pet. And it doesn't. Okay, so you see this here? This is word games now. But defendant argues that because a president who is impeached and convicted may be subject to a prosecution means that a president who is not convicted may not be subject to criminal prosecution. But even assuming the negative implication finds some traction when applied to sitting presidents, the logic does not hold for former presidents. Okay, so now she's going to time exclude him. That's because there is another way besides impeachment and conviction for a president to be removed from office and thus subject to the ordinary course of the law. The president shall hold his office during the term of 4 years. And so she says the expiration of the term ends that protection. Nothing in the impeachment clause prevents criminal prosecution thereafter. It's really disgusting. It's the same conduct, right? The January 6th case is the same conduct that he was impeached for, that he's being indicted for. So they say Trump's reading of the impeachment clause also proves too much. He read too much into it. If the clause required impeachment and conviction precede criminal prosecution, then that requirement would apply not only to the president, but also to the vice president and all civil officers of the United States who may likewise be impeached. So now she's saying it's if I read it too broad, then it makes illogical sense. And finally, says Judge Chutkan, Trump's interpretation of the impeachment clause would produce implausibly perverse results. And let's see, says the Constitution permits impeachment and conviction for limited categories of offenses, high crimes and misdemeanors. Oh my gosh, this is wild. So now she's going to say if we read it this way, then Trump's crimes would not be prosecutable. Under Trump's reading, if a president commits a crime that doesn't fall within one of these 4 categories, treason, bribery, high crimes, which I don't know, you could say felonies, and 4 misdemeanors. So if any one of those is not included, then he can't be prosecuted at all. But if Congress does not have an opportunity to impeach or convict a sitting president, perhaps because the crime occurred near the end of their term or is covered up until after the president has left office, well, that's a separate issue. You could always make the argument that the president can be impeached after he has left office, if you want to go that route. She's saying that there's a gap in prosecution that a president could escape. He could commit a bunch of crimes at the end of office and then not be prosecuted. Says the former president could similarly not be prosecuted. Says defendant seems to suggest that this scenario in which the former president would be utterly unaccountable for their terms is simply the price we pay for separation of powers. And she says that cannot be the clause's meaning, which is not what anybody's arguing, right? But she's saying if I interpret it this way, I could get there. And so therefore I can't interpret it that way. But my interpretation, I think, also leads to even more perverse results, what we're seeing actually right now. Now, she doesn't think they're perverse because it's the prosecution of somebody that she detests and that the left is on a mission to remove. But the perverse results here are that any president can now be indicted, as long as anybody can just make up a charge, essentially, for whatever. No immunity. And if you can make the claim that there's some, personal overlap, there's some non-presidential conduct, that you can bypass Congress and the impeachment proceeding to just go straight to an indictment. It's a perverse thing. That's she's opening the door for essentially political prosecutions in America. Since they started it, they're like, well, we're allowed to. In sum, this is Chutkan wrapping up, says, in sum, nothing in the Constitution supplies the immunity that Trump claims. There's no affirmative, I agree, there's no affirmative statement. The president has immunity from corrupt hack prosecutors. But they articulated what the impeachment mechanism was to prevent against that. And she just got rid of it. So to be sure, She says a specific textual basis has not been considered a prerequisite to the recognition of immunity, but the lack of the supporting constitutional text does mean that a former president's federal immunity must arise entirely out of concerns of public policy, essentially as illuminated by our history. And she says the defendant's resort to those principles fares no better. And so that's Judge Chutkan. Okay, she goes on for another bunch of pages articulating what, how she justifies all of this. And so we'll fast forward to the end of it and just show you here what happens here. She says, finally, for the indictment to comply with due process, the prosecution bears the burden to provide examples where similar conduct was found criminal, and says here, under that theory, novel criminal acts would never be prosecuted. And so the Constitution doesn't constrain the executive branch for allowing them to do what they're doing. And so all said and done, for the foregoing reasons, Chutkan, as we expected, denies both motions. Motion to dismiss on presidential immunity, motion to dismiss the indictment based on constitutional grounds. And we already saw the order. And so undoubtedly, Trump will be appealing these to the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. We'll see what they say. I think we probably know where that one's going to go as well. And then we'll see what happens at the Supreme Court, where all of these cases will be bound. Now, the big question is, do we get something from them before March? That seems to be a long shot in my estimation, unless they accelerate, unless the SCOTUS accepts this thing and accelerates it. I'm not sure. We'll see. So we'll be here continuing to cover this, my friends. Now, here is Liz Cheney talking about just how dangerous this is. So Donald Trump has no presidential immunity. He has no constitutional protections, according to Judge Chutkan. Liz Cheney's out there selling a bunch of books, trying to get people to think that she's relevant after she got obliterated in her last election. Shout out to Harriet Hageman. And here is Liz Cheney talking about that if Trump is elected, he's going to stay in power forever, even though he left last time without really even much of a fight, actually. Here's Liz. Gosh.
Darkest terms, we will be voting on whether to preserve our republic in the next election. You think this is a vote about whether or not we still have democracy in this country?
It certainly is, and Donald Trump has told us exactly what he will do. He will not abide by the rulings of the courts. He will certainly appoint people to office, whether or not they can be confirmed by the Senate. He has talked about using the military in terms that really are fundamentally un-American, including here in the United States. So it's a very dangerous moment, and it's a moment for people to understand that cannot be the path that we go down as a country.
Just yesterday in an interview, you said fundamentally there's a choice to be made. You can't be both for Donald Trump and for the Constitution. You have to choose.
Yeah.
A vote for Donald Trump is unconstitutional, anti-American.
Well, he won't support and uphold the Constitution. We've already seen what happened. He is the only president in American history who attempted to overturn an election, who attempted to seize power.
That's not true at all. He was trying to contest a rigged election, which we know is rigged by the CIA, by the media, by the FBI, and many others. And so this is hilarious because Liz Cheney is articulating all the things that they've done. I mean, she says like Trump doesn't respect the courts or something. Or like Joe Biden he just does things. Like, remember student loans? Like, remember those things that Joe Biden just does out of his own? And, a totalitarian, tyrannical government? What FBI raids were we having of Democrats back during the Trump years? Was that happening at all? No, they were roaming the streets, torching cars in Minneapolis. Okay, none of this was happening. The tyranny that we're seeing, the rounding up of American citizens, by the way, by our own government is happening under the Democrats' watch. Liz Cheney's a part of it, but she's going to lecture us about tyranny? Yeah.
To stay in power after he had lost. And the reason that we didn't have a much more serious crisis was because there were people around him who stopped him, because there were people around the country, state officials, for example, who stopped him, who did not yield to the pressure that he put on them to change votes from Biden to Trump. We won't have that safeguard again. And he's so dangerous. If you have a president who is unwilling to abide by the rulings of the courts, who's unwilling to uphold the Constitution, then there are no guardrails who can stop him.
You've said we're sort of sleepwalking into dictatorship in the United States. Dictatorship. Is that what we would have if
Wow.
we reelect Donald Trump?
I think it's a very, very real threat and concern. And I don't say
Yeah.
any of that lightly. And frankly, it's painful for me as someone who, has spent her whole life in Republican politics, who grew up as a Republican, to watch what's happening to my party and to watch the extent to which Donald Trump himself has, basically determined that the only thing that matters is him, his power, his success. And that is not somebody you can entrust with the power of the presidency.
It seems crazy to ask this and even crazier to fathom it. But do you believe if Donald Trump were elected next year that he would try to stay in office beyond a second term? That he would never leave office?
There's no question.
No
You
question.
think he would try to stay in power forever?
Absolutely. I mean, he's
All right, sounds pretty good. I mean, that's not a bad thing.
already done it once. And in fact, if you look at what he did in the run up to
left.
January 6th, in terms of his pressure on the vice president not to count legitimate electoral votes, his pressure on the Department of Justice, on state officials, and then refusing to send help when the Capitol was under attack, he's already attempted to seize power. And he was stopped, thankfully, and for the good of the nation and the republic. But he said he will do it again. He's expressed no remorse for what he did.
So she must really need to sell some books. I mean, she sounds like unhinged. I mean, really unwell that Trump is going to be a dictator, seize power. But did he leave last time? I mean, he packed up his stuff and left. You charge him with crimes for that. Like, you understand that? He's got an indictment against him in Florida because he's not the president. And now you guys are raiding everybody. You went through his wife's sock drawer. Okay, so that's Liz. She's having a tough one out there. And I think, I don't know if she's that demented or if she's just a faker, but I think she's dishonest either way. And this is what Trump said in response. And he was talking to her in response to some of her weekend commentary. Said, crazy Liz Cheney from Trump, who suffers from Trump derangement syndrome at a level rarely seen before, writes in her boring new book that Kevin McCarthy said that he came to Mar-a-Lago after the rigged election because, quote, the former president was depressed and not eating. That statement is not true. I was not depressed, says Trump. I was angry. And it was not that I was not eating. It was that I was eating too much. Oops. He was at Mar-a-Lago to get my support and to bring Republican Party together. Only good intentions from Kev. Liz Cheney, on the other hand, went on to lose her seat in Congress by the largest margin in the history of the U.S. I didn't realize that. She then worked with others on the J6 committee to delete and destroy the findings and the evidence from the committee. And so that's Donald Trump, absolutely right. It is true. TDS is reaching epic proportions, and Liz Cheney, she has a lot of it. So hopefully someone gets her some, sedition quill so that she can take sedition quill and relax, calm down over there. All right, so that's Liz Cheney. Now, this is the motion to dismiss being denied by Judge Chutkan. Stick around. Thanks for subscribing to our channel because we're going to see more motions to dismiss being denied right here from Judge Chutkan. A lot more, in fact. She's going to be denying. And so hopefully you join us as we continue to cover them because they'll be appealed and then the day will come. We'll be covering it, my friends. Thank you for liking this video. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for checking out robertgovea.com to check out the daily newsletter. Sign up for that, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, my friends, now that was Chutkan. And so let's see what else is going on over there in New York with our favorite judge. Gosh, you know what I mean by that. All right, let's get to it. Donald Trump now appeals the gag order again from Judge Engoron and his law clerk, the principal law clerk. He gets very upset when you don't call her by her proper name. We call her the judge's GF. Her name is Allison Greenfield. And we notice that she's sitting on the same level as the judge on the bench, giving him little love notes, maybe kicking him in the foot. We don't know what else they're doing over there. But the problem was Trump's lawyers were having some concerns about this. Why is she telling you what to do? Why is she giving you guidance on our objections? Why are you allowing her to be the judge when you're just sitting there taking orders from her? So there were concerns about this. Now we've seen this. Donald Trump, in my opinion, and his defense team also have the right to criticize the court system. That's the whole purpose of free speech. You have to be able to criticize the tyrants Otherwise, the tyrants can do whatever they want. That's the whole purpose of the First Amendment. And so Trump got gagged. He got sanctioned multiple times, fined $15,000. We went up to the next level court of appeals, the Appellate Court in New York, and now we are at the New York Supreme Court. Now, for most other states, we call the highest court in our state the Supreme Court. New York calls it the Court of Appeals. And so it's a little bit confusing, but we're at the highest level now. We're going to see what is happening there. We're also going to hear from Psaki, who says that, yeah, Trump should be gagged, okay? He is dangerous. His words, his truths, they might not feel that dangerous. You might just dismiss them, but they're actually an attack on American democracy and journos like Psaki. So we're going to go right to it. In the New York Court of Appeals, you can see this is the most recent filing submitted by the moving party. So this is Trump's team submitting this in Honorable Arthur Areola Engoron's court. They're saying, we've got a problem here submitting this up to the highest level now, saying this application is by Trump for expedited leave for permission from the Court of Appeals to appeal this with an expedited determination and review. They're asking, hey, New York Supreme Court, we're asking for you to vacate, essentially, the way this works, to zoom out briefly. Engoron at the lower level, first level court, issued the gag. Appellate Court reversed the gag, issued a stay on the gag until the full panel reversed the stay. So now Trump is saying, can you please reverse the reversal of the stay and lift the gag again, is the sequence here. So here is what they write. All right. Upon reading in the filing of this annexed affirmation of urgency, this is Trump's lawyer, Clifford Robert, we've got a couple of things we need. We want this court to grant leave to appeal to the Court of Appeals, the Supreme Court, the lower level rulings, and so on. And they say, this is what we are doing this for. This is Trump's attorney writing. All right, Court of Appeals, in this case, the Supreme Court, the highest court. I am the principal law firm of Robert & Robert Attorneys. This affirmation of urgency is submitted in support of Trump's emergency. We've got a lot of stuff going on here. All the gag orders and all of the rulings that have come out. We respectfully request this court to grant immediate leave to appeal from the lower level court that reversed the stay of the gag. Why? We need this court to expedite review. We've got to redress Judge Engoron's ongoing violations of the Constitution, the New York Constitution, the judiciary law, the rules of this court. As more fully explained, we're going to talk about why the gag orders, which restrict Trump and their lawyers' speech, impermissibly abrogate their First Amendment rights. We've got serious concerns about this public trial. And we've got serious concerns about the Greenfield in this ongoing bench trial. We have the gag that limits Trump and his defense from even speaking about this. Saying here that the judge's first name is David. No, that's not him. Justice David Friedman is the Court of Appeals judge. After robust oral argument, okay, so Engoron gags them, and then David Friedman is awesome. He considers Trump's constitutional and statutory rights, and he says, yeah, we're staying the gag from Engoron. But then in November, a 4-judge panel reversed the stay. Now, the error requires immediate review by the Supreme Court, says Trump. Without an expedited review, Donald Trump is going to suffer irreparable injury every day. Trump is silenced on matters implicating the appearance of a bias and impropriety on the bench during a trial of immense stakes. This is Tishy. Petitioners, lawyers, they have no means of preserving evidence. Okay, Trump's lawyers can't even object to the law clerk whispering in the judge's ear. Okay, she could like walk over there and give him a massage on the back and just say, you're doing a great job, Judge. Keep up the great work. And she could look Alina Abba dead eye, look her right in the eye and say, yeah, Alina, what are you going to do about it? Literally, because they're gagged. And the judge also moved the cameras away from the bench so that nobody could see their games of footsie. So here, Trump's, look, this is not like Trump, okay, cannot go on True Social and say that woman's, a bad person or whatever. Not even that. Trump's lawyers cannot comment on the clerk. How can they defend their client if they can't make arguments? So here they say this is very improper. Moreover, Judge Engoron's abuse of the summary contempt power, which is what he used to try to gag everybody, is abusing the law. And so we need leave to appeal this. Said that if we don't, it's going to be months to resolve this. Trial is going to end. Gag orders will expire far sooner. And these First Amendment issues are going to evade review. So we also ask that this court expedite this review. We say we're currently available all the time. We've got our case in chief, which is about to conclude on Tuesday. Okay, so Trump, this is the New York trial, the Tishy Latish case. And she is going to be, actually Trump's defense is calling him back to the stand at some point. And here we see that they're asking an emergency relief. Now we've got several different exhibits here, and let's take a look at what is here. This is from Clifford Robert. He sent this one Sunday, December 3rd. It says, "Dear counsel, pursuant to this, please be advised that we're going to be here at the Court of Appeals." And this is their memo. Okay. Yeah, this is from the lower. Yeah, this is from the lower level court. So I do believe that we've read this one. Let me just make sure. Yeah, this was, I think, was from the lower level court that they've already submitted up. And then let's see what else is in this filing. Obviously, this was denied, right? Yeah, okay. So that is what that looks like in the Court of Appeals, which is the Supreme Court out of New York. Now, there was something that came out just fresh out of the oven. And so let me pull this up. I saw this as I was sitting down to do the show. And let's see where I have it. This just came out of the oven from Adam Klasfeld. He said, Trump's bid to expedite and escalate the effort to overturn his gag order. So again, the gag order was imposed, then it was stayed, then the Court of Appeals reversed the stay. He said, please reverse the reversal of the stay so the stay is back up so that I can continue to say what I want. And I need you to do this like now. They say that this has been denied. So let's go into this and see if we have the full opinion from Adam Klasfeld. Klasfeld always has good reporting and good filings, and he did give us the full document. And so let's see what we have here. This is what the Court of Appeals has said, and we'll see if we have a scheduling briefing as well. So this is what Trump submitted. Summary statement on the application for expedited service. The Court of Appeals, which is the Supreme Court, comes back out. They says this application is for expedited leave to appeal by permission, and we want it expedited. Here is what the court says. The application, this is this person, says the application for interim relief seeking an expedited grant of leave to the Court of Appeals is denied. As such, a motion must be decided by a full panel of this court. So further, the movement seeks an interim application for a preference is likewise denied. As such, determination must be made by a full panel of this court. So the application for an expedited briefing schedule is granted as set forth below. All right. So here's what's happening. The Court of Appeals, the Supreme Court, has said the gag is going to stay in place, but we'll consider it later. And so there'll be a full briefing schedule that will be posted at some point, and so they'll actually have further arguments on this. So they didn't just reject it, right? I was concerned that maybe they just rejected the appeal or something, but they didn't. So they'll have a briefing schedule, then the full panel, the full court will make decisions when there are oral arguments at a later time. But this is showing us that the gag order is still in place and Trump will not be able to comment on it. And so that will take some time. Let's see if we have any update on when that might take place. So Klasfeld was there, I believe, he has been there reporting. So make sure you're following him. Klasfeld reports. He says, the AG's office will have another opportunity to oppose Trump's efforts for leave to appeal on Monday, December 11th. So short time from now. The date of the anticipated start of the second round of testimony is going to be when he's supposed to testify next week. So apparently he's going to be called to the stand to testify. Unknown when or how New York's Appellate Division, the first department, will rule on Trump's request. So that's to the asking the the Appellate Division for permission to go to the Court of Appeals. But this is now certain. That will not happen before he takes a stand once again. That is to say, the ruling doesn't mark the final say on the matter, but as a practical matter, Trump's not going to get the relief before he is supposed to testify. So, in other words, the briefing schedule here, this is not going to happen before he testifies. And I think Trump is near the end of the trial. So he's almost the last witness in the case. And it might be over and it might be moot. So the gag is going to stay in place. Some people are going to be very happy about that. MSNBC's #1 show called Inside Jen Psaki, for some reason, they posted her and she shared this, says that, Trump posts a lot of bad comments. He says a lot of mean things. And Sarah Reese Jones got this for us at Politicus. Sarah says here, Jen Psaki shared this on her show, saying that if you are not concerned with Trump's truth posts, you should be, because they're dangerous to journalists across America.
Free press.
Here's what she says.
Things were combative, and they were at times, even when reporters kept pushing and questioning, as was their job. That was democracy working. That is what a free press is supposed to do. And it doesn't exist everywhere in the world. In fact, it's diminishing in the world. So Trump's Truth Social post may have seemed unhinged and crazy and random and like you could ignore it. It was actually, though, a threat to the free press, a threat to democracy. And that threat comes at a time when a record total of 533 journalists are currently detained worldwide. That's according to Reporters Without Borders.
Did Trump do that? Jen? What? What? Did Jen? Is she blaming Trump for this?
A large number of them are being held by the sorts of authoritarian regimes that Trump envisions creating here at home.
Oh, the sorts.
These are countries being led by his role models, like Russian President Vladimir Putin, who Trump called very savvy and a genius for his actions in Ukraine. In Russia, an American...
Well, he's winning. He's beating Biden and the United States that have depleted everything in order to support that. Even Lindsey Graham's like, hey, ixnay on the Ukraine. Okay, we're done now. So it's not working for him. So Putin mopped the floor with all of you guys, Jen. So he is pretty smart.
Journalist Evan Gershkovich has been detained for 249 days simply for doing his job.
Russia,
Trump has also repeatedly praised the leadership style of China's President Xi Jinping. Over 100 journalists are currently...
Who got San Francisco to clean their crap up. You couldn't even get Gavin Newsom to clean the crap up in San Francisco. But President Xi comes in and does. And so Trump is right. He is pretty smart. He can get even the left to clean up their own fecal matter on the streets of their cities.
...detained in China. And over the last couple of years, several foreign journalists from major outlets have been expelled entirely from the country. Putin and Xi are models for Trump. We know that. Leaders who jail and silence journalists.
How about leaders who jail and silence American citizens who are participating in free speech, who are there just protesting like the left does all the time, who did nothing like an insurrection? Okay, Jen, these people are maniacs.
Who do not tolerate free speech. That's what Trump is threatening.
The FBI, the DOJ censored millions of Americans, including us here.
And if you don't think he's eager to use those tactics, if you don't think he is dying to silence his critics in the media, think again. The Washington Post Jason Rezaian was held hostage for 500.
He should silence the propagandists out there, right? And I don't mean illegally or by eliminating them in any way, shape, or form, but by winning in massive numbers such that these people are shown for the fakers that they are. Everything she said is what the Democrats do. And she went on her show and lied to her audience about it. And it's a weird situation that people keep tuning into that show, Inside Jen Psaki on MSNBC, but they're into that stuff. So, my friends, that is the latest at the Court of Appeals. So Trump is seeking leave to file in the highest court, and we'll see if he gets permission to do that, what the briefing schedule looks like, but the gag is going to stay in place until we get there. We'll see what happens at the New York Court of Appeals. If and when he gets there, Tishy's going to be responding. We'll continue to cover the New York trial as it unfolds. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for checking out robertgovea.com to sign up for our daily newsletter. If you want these segments wrapped up in a bow and delivered to your inbox every day, that's the place to do it. Absolutely free. We'd love to sign you up there, robertgovea.com for the daily newsletter, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right. And now, my friends, we've got one final segment on the day, and this one is here. We've got this one from back in D.C. again. We're going back over to Washington, but this one's a little bit different. The Washington, D.C. Court of Appeals has now authorized civil lawsuits against Trump. And we've already played this game before. You remember when New York passed that weird law that allowed Miss Bergdorf to file that lawsuit against Trump saying she got Bergdorfed in the Bergdorf dressing room? Well, similar type of thing. Okay, Trump has obviously been charged with a number of crimes in the January 6th aftermath. But now, what about civil lawsuits? What about a lot of the other Bergdorfs who want to get their Bergdorf on? Well, the Court of Appeals says that Trump and the litigation against him is allowed to go forward, that this is not going to be dismissed outright. This comes down from an appeal Trump had submitted. We're going to get into it before we hear about Mike Johnson from Liz Cheney, who's selling books saying that Johnson's a collaborator in all this. And this opens the question, does this make civil lawsuits against all of our government officials allowed? Can we just start suing them for misconduct now? I mean, the whole world is changing on the back of Donald Trump. They're really shattering a lot of precedent here. And let's see what's happening out of the DC Court of Appeals. You can see this one dropped 1201. It's a 67-pager. We'll hit the highlights on it. It's the United States Court of Appeals. You can tell that from the fancy lettering there. And it says here from the District of Columbia out of Washington, D.C., Donald Trump is the appellant, right? He is appealing this from a lower level ruling. And the appellees are James Blassingame and Sidney Hempy suing Donald Trump. Now, this is on appeal from the U.S. District Court, and that's where a lot of these other cases are going. It looks like 3 different case numbers all filed against Trump. Let's see who is here. There were oral arguments on this case. You can see the court's telling us everybody was here. And here is the opinion. Now, they're telling us about presidential immunity and civil damages. Okay, Trump is already being prosecuted criminally, but what about civilly? Same story. Says here, the judge's name is Srinivasan. Says, since the Supreme Court's decision in Nixon versus Fitzgerald, which is what granted presidential immunity for civil cases, presidents have carried out their official responsibilities free from any exposure to civil damages liability. That was the old rule. President is immune. Nixon, the case, established that a president's absolute immunity from civil damage is predicated on his official acts. Okay? Presidential immunity applied to Nixon. The object of a president's official act immunity is to assure that he can fearlessly and impartially discharge the singularly weighty duties of his office. And so you can already see where this is going to go, right? The official act immunity. So they're just going to carve out a little exception and say Trump is not official act immunity. That's insurrection immunity. Oh, okay. You don't have that. The president, though, does not spend every minute of every day exercising his official responsibilities, especially when you're insurrecting. And when he acts outside the functions of his office, he does not continue to enjoy immunity from damages liability just because he happens to be the president. And says the Supreme Court has made clear about that. The president's official act immunity, by nature, does not extend to his unofficial actions. We learned that in Clinton versus Jones. And when he acts in unofficial private capacity, he is subject to civil suits just like any private citizen. So now we know where this is going. What's going to happen with Trump? This appeal calls for us to apply those key decisional precedents on presidential immunity to a decidedly unprecedented event involving the presidency, the riot at the Capitol. It's interesting they call it a riot, right? Not the insurrection. Okay, this is not Judge Chutkan writing. This is the Court of Appeals. The riot at the Capitol, just as Congress convened to tabulate the vote. Plaintiffs in the cases before us are Capitol Police officers. Those people are cops who are suing Trump, and members of Congress who are at the Capitol that day. So I think, is Stinky Eric Swalwell a part of this? I didn't see his name at the header, but he might be one of those other sub cases that's being consolidated. Probably. He probably has a broken heart from his long lost love when he was making Bang Bang with Fang Fang, the Chinese spy, stinking up the whole Capitol building there on January 6th. And now he's suing. All right, so they seek civil damages for harms that they allege they suffered arising from the riot, just like Bergdorf got Bergdorfed in the dressing room. Got it. So although they sue various persons, the sole defendant named in all the cases are Trump. The plaintiffs here, these cops and the Congress people, they contend that during Trump's final months in office, he conspired with political allies to get a second term despite a defeat. He allegedly advanced that cause before J6 by repeatedly making false claims that the election might be and then had been stolen, filed meritless lawsuits challenging the election. It's like, what are you talking about? We just read here the 2018 opinion, or I'm sorry, the recent 2023 opinion about a 2018 case involving Georgia and election fraud and how corrupt and broken their systems are. So the lawsuits were meritful, I would say. They just didn't get litigated appropriately because of election deadlines. And then it becomes moot at that point. So those efforts allegedly culminated in a 75-minute speech. Trump delivered that speech on January 6th, which is now illegal to say things. According to the plaintiffs, Trump's actions, and this is civilly, sparked the ensuing riot at the Capitol. And all of these civil lawsuits are death by 1,000 cuts. Okay, it takes campaign money, it takes time, it takes legal RPMs, all right, how much brain power needs to go in to defending against this onslaught of never-ending lawfare. It is incredibly expensive, not only in terms of money, which you might just write off, but in terms of capacity and energy. It takes a lot. All of that could be generated to get out the vote, to go out and cut new commercials, to go rally, right? All the things. But this is by design to bleed off campaign resources. And it's working, I'm sure. President Trump moved in the district court to dismiss the claims against him, including on the grounds of a president official immunity from damages. Okay, so they sue Trump. Trump moves to dismiss the case. The court denies the motion to dismiss, says you don't have civil immunity, and the case is now on appeal. The district court rejected the claims of immunity and Trump appeals. The sole issue before us is, can Trump, whether he has demonstrated an entitlement to official act immunity for his actions on J6? Chutkan said he doesn't have presidential immunity for crimes. Let's see what this judge says in the Court of Appeals. It says, we answer no. At least at this stage of the proceedings. It says we're not going to allow Trump to dismiss this right now. When a first-term president opts to seek a second term, his campaign to win re-election is not an official presidential act. Okay, so Trump campaigning to win re-election is not an official presidential act. Now, my response to this, and we're going to keep going, but I would also say that you could disambiguate that. So now we're asking about the speech. Okay, was the speech an official presidential act, or was the speech at the rally a non-presidential act? They say it is a non-presidential act and not subject to the protections of immunity. Why? Because he was talking about winning a re-election. I would also argue two things can be true at the same time. He was also doing his duty as the executive, as the president of this country, as the chief executive of the executive branch, to ensure that we do not have rigged elections. So by being there and by using the legal mechanisms around him, that was two things. It was Trump running for re-election and trying to win again, obviously, which is fine. You're allowed to do that. And you were until you got charged with crimes for that. Every other Democrat was allowed to do that, except Trump's not recently. But it's bigger than that, right? It's also about ensuring the integrity of elections, because he is the chief executive. And we know that the elections were rigged top to bottom. And they're finally starting to admit it. You can even talk about it now, which is fun. So here, the office of the presidency, right? They're probably going to skip over that portion of this, but the office of the presidency as an institution is agnostic about who's going to occupy it next. So campaigning to gain that office is not an official act of the office. Well, I would say the opposite. Another thing is true. speaking to ensure that the rightful holder of the office is an official act of the office. The president should ensure that we have fair elections and that it is not rigged. And that if there is a contest about that, that it is appropriately litigated. So we want the due holder to be there. So when a sitting president running for a second term attends a private fundraiser for his re-election effort, or hires or fires campaign staff, or cuts a political ad supporting his candidacy, or speaks at a campaign rally funded and organized by his campaign committee, he's not carrying out the official duties of the presidency. He's acting as an office seeker, not an office holder. No less than are the persons running against him when they take precisely the same actions in their competing campaigns to attain precisely the same office. Okay, but Trump wasn't indicted for those things. Okay, that's not what Trump did. Trump did not get indicted for hiring or firing people. Okay, he got indicted for executing the actual office, which is to ensure that we have free and fair elections. That is his duty. The people on the other side of that, they don't have that same duty because they're not office holders. They're not in the office. So you're mixing things here. One is the president, the other is not. The president has an obligation to ensure the country runs appropriately simultaneously with his re-election campaign. That former is protected, or should be. President Trump himself recognized that he engaged in his campaign to win re-election. That's good because he was running it. That's neat. Including his post-election efforts to alter the declared votes in his favor, or to, let's say, confirm the rightful results. In his personal capacity as a presidential candidate, not in his official capacity as sitting president. They say he said the same thing. That is evident in his effort to intervene in the Supreme Court's consideration of a post-election lawsuit challenging the administration. So he says he filed this document, and we're going to reference this document to show why Trump even thinks that he doesn't have this. He expressly filed the motion in the Supreme Court, quote, in his personal capacity as candidate for re-election to the office of the presidency. Okay, okay, he says rather than in his official capacity as sitting president. But I really don't know what that has to do with the January 6th speech, which is the subject of the indictment. So some things, okay, the January 6th speech caused the January 6th actions that harmed the plaintiffs. Okay, Trump is being sued for some sort of a damage. So we got to go back to the damages. This is a civil claim. So Trump did something, which was the speech, which caused January 6th, which caused damages for the petitioners. Okay. So the speech was given either in a dual capacity, personal capacity as a candidate and presidential capacity to make sure the elections are not rigged. That is very different than filing a claim about fraud in the Supreme Court. Like, this is a non sequitur. What are we even talking about this for? So somewhere else, Trump claimed that he was operating in election challenges separate and apart from what happened that's even a part of this case. So they're just picking something, right? This is literally cherry picking from another Trump filing and saying, oh, in that lawsuit, you said that personal over there, so we're going to consider it personal here. He grounded his claim right to intervene in that case in his unique and substantial personal interest. So this is all they just cherry picked it right out. And I don't know what that case has to do with the harm that's alleged in this lawsuit. Now, in arguing that he's entitled to official act immunity now we get back to this case, Trump does not dispute that he engaged in his alleged actions up into on January 6th as a candidate, which is true. But he thinks that does not matter. No, he also thinks that there was an executive function. Rather, in his view, a president's speech on public matters of public concern is invariably an official function. Of course, he's the president. That's all they do is give speeches. Like all the time. That's it. They just say things. That's all they do. So he says, in his view, the speech on matters of public concerns is invariably an official function, and he was engaged in that function on J6 and the lead up to that day. But they say, nope, we can't accept that rationale. While presidents are often exercising official duties when they speak on matters of public concern, that is not always the case when a sitting president running for re-election speaks in a campaign ad or accepting his political party's nomination, he typically speaks on matters of public concern. Again, that's accepting a nomination at a party convention, okay? They're not even addressing the other part of what Trump was talking about. Trump was speaking about two things. Yes, him winning the presidency, but also having the rightful holder of the office in the presidency. And that is not, that second part of that, having the rightful holder, that's not a subject that you get when you get nominated at a party convention, okay? That's different. When you cut a campaign ad, that's not the same thing. So they're trying to say that Trump was just basically doing purely campaign stuff when that's not true. He was the president. Yet he does so in an unofficial private capacity holder, an office seeker. I don't even argue with that. I would agree. But that's not what Trump was doing. So why are you giving us those examples? And actions taken in an unofficial capacity cannot qualify for official act immunity. Great. So while we thus reject Trump's argument for official act immunity at this stage, the result is necessarily tied to the need to assume the truth of the cops, the J6, Capitol Hill cops, factual allegations at this point in the proceeding. And so Trump has not had a chance to counter those allegations with facts. And so when these cases move forward in district court, Trump must be afforded the opportunity to develop his own facts on the immunity question if he desires to show that he took the actions alleged in the complaint as a president rather than as a candidate. So this case can move forward. We're going to litigate over the official capacity versus non-official capacity later. But Trump's motion to dismiss this case is not going to survive. They're going to send it back down and they're going to say, continue on with your litigation. At this time, it's going back down to the lower court. But when appropriate, Trump can then later move for summary judgment on his claim of official act immunity. So in other words, Trump hasn't established that this was official act yet. Okay. So because our decision is not necessarily even the final word on the issue of presidential immunity. Okay, that's some hedging right there. That does not sound like Chutkan, right? Chutkan is like, this is the standard. The Constitution says nevertheless, and nevertheless means do whatever the hell we want. We, of course, express no view on the ultimate merits of the claims against Trump, nor do we have any occasion to address his other defenses, including his claim that his alleged action fall within the First Amendment, because they did not amount to incitement of imminent lawless action. He did not seek appellate review of that at this time, but he will. But he could bring that issue before us in the future, which he will. They're working on that right now. So the motion to dismiss denial from Chutkan that we got on December 1st is going to be appealed, no doubt. Now, we also do not opine on whether the executive or other privileges might shield certain evidence from discovery or other use as litigation proceeds, nor does our decision on presidential official immunity determine whether or when he might be immune from criminal prosecution, right? So that's the other, Chutkan just ruled on that. So that issue will now also go up to the Court of Appeals. They say instead, we only hold that here, in this civil case, taking the allegations from the cops and the Congress people as true, we must, at this point in this proceeding, we must demonstrate that President Trump has not demonstrated an entitlement to the dismissal of the claims right now. In the proceedings ahead in district court, Trump will have the opportunity to show that his alleged actions in the run-up were done in his official capacity as president rather than his unofficial capacity as a presidential candidate. And so that is the ruling from the Court of Appeals. You can see this one came out of the DC Circuit. And it's saying that as to the civil claims brought by these people, James Blossingame, Sidney Hempy, and the other allegedly Congress people and other officers who were there. And I'm seeing if there's any other names here that we recognize. Former White House DOJ officials were there, diplomats, and others. Okay, so that's the ruling out of the Court of Appeals. So Trump right now is going to face ongoing litigation, right? And I get concerned about this because once you open Pandora's box on this, there's a lot of J6 cops there, a lot of Metro PD, a lot of Capitol Hill PD, a lot of other people in the Washington area that might have claims and might have opportunity and a lot of money being thrown at them to go and file a lawsuit against Trump, just like they've done in many other jurisdictions. And is it going to stop there? Are they going to just stop at Trump? Or maybe they'll just sue everybody in Congress. Maybe we can sue people in Congress if this is going to be the new standard. We'll have to wait and see. But here is Liz Cheney saying that, yeah, even Speaker Johnson is a co-conspirator. House Speaker Mike Johnson says that he's a collaborator with Trump. Maybe they're going to get him too. Liz Cheney's really on one lately. Here she is.
If you look at what Donald Trump is trying to do, he can't do it by himself. He has to have collaborators. And the story of Mike Johnson is the story of a collaborator and of someone who knew then and knows now that what he's doing and saying is wrong, but he's willing to do it in an effort to please Donald Trump. And that's what makes it dangerous.
The Speaker of the House is a collaborator to overthrow the last election.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's the new standard right now. Everybody who is not anti-Trump is a collaborator with Trump and an insurrectionist who's going to seize America. So that is what we have on that one, my friends. Now, Donald Trump, this case will go back down to the lower level court. The litigation will continue. We will turn around and see if Donald Trump will have enough now to declare that he was operating within the official duties, the official capacity of the role of the president, which I think he absolutely was. As the chief executive, we want to make sure our elections are proper. And then will that carry over at the Court of Appeals on the other criminal prosecution? And ultimately, what is the Supreme Court going to say about it? So it is going to be a lot of fun to continue to cover this, my friends. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for checking out robertgovea.com. If you want to read any of the PDF documents, all the red lines are uploaded there. We also have a daily newsletter. We'd love it if you signed up for that. We'd also love a subscribe here, wherever it is you're watching it. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, my friends. Well, that is it for us on the day. We covered some good ground today. Now it's time to hear from you. We talked about DC now authorizing civil lawsuits, so the lawfare game will continue on, and we'll see what Trump and his defense do about that. We've got new updates out of New York. The Court of Appeals will be hearing this case, very likely. We're still in the appeal process, but we saw what Trump submitted saying that this needs to go up. We also had Donald Trump responding to Liz Cheney and others after Judge Chutkan issued the motion to dismiss, denied the motion to dismiss on the presidential immunity issue and the constitutional grounds as well. And so we'll have more denials from her, no doubt about it. But now, my friends, it is time to hear from you and to see what you have to say about this. We are going to go over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com, our members only community for our after party. We do members only streams there. We do Saturday streams there when we're not out of the pocket. But come check it out, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And we're doing some cool stuff coming up this week, actually. We're accelerating our most recent project. Decided that today. So we'll be covering that there. My friends, now let's hear from you. Let's see what you have to say about this. We've got some amazing comments in the house. And we got Donut Mind Me is clipping away for us. Thank you, Donut, who is modding down the fort for us on the day. And let's see who is here kicking us off. I see. There it is. Oh, there it is. So sometimes we get some good warm-up gifts in the clip. This is it. We're getting ready, baby. We're getting ready. The kitty's getting ready. And we got B-Mans here. Says, I'm sorry, but a president is on duty 24/7, 365 until January 20th. He needs to go to the Supreme Court because Chutkan and the rest of them are in on it. I'm with you on that, B-Man. Are you ever off as the president? And is Trump, is a rigged election only a candidate's concern? Or is that the acting president's concern as well? I think it's both. And if it's the other, then you should be protected for that. It's that simple. So thank you, B-Man. Very nice, Dono. Thanks for getting us started today. And thank you, Donut Miami, for clipping away. We got Zach Nichols also clipping. We got Knox Bierman. What's up, Knox? Says, happy Monday, everyone. Ordered my Rubo's salt collection for my fam. Smart move, Knox. All my son-in-laws and my only son all get gift packs. Ooh. And so it's good stuff, my friend. I don't know what kind of salt you're using, but if you just get like the regular old store brand salt, what are you doing? Class it up a bit, man. Class it up. Go to rubosaltshop.com. and get your salt. Where is this made? It's like from the bottom of the ocean in like France or something. Check this out. Look, listen to this. Here, I don't know what salt. What are you putting on your eggs in the morning? Here, forms underneath. Here, this is French sel gray. I don't even know how to say it right. Here, it's formed underneath the fleur de sel in the salt marshes of France's coastal seawater marshes. I can't even read it. That's how fancy it is. And I'm salivating already just thinking about this thing. All right. So rubossaltshop.com. Go check it out. And upgrade your salt, my friends. It's good stuff. Rubos are in our community. They're amazing people. We love the Rubos. And the Knox fam is going to have some good salt as well. All right. We got Knox says, why did we take con law 2 semesters? I have no idea, Knox. Could you tell how frustrated I was getting? Knox is an attorney in Texas. Could you tell how frustrated I was getting reading these motions? I thought I was reading like my 1L briefs or something. Like, I think this is how the Constitution works. Mashing it all together. It's like, no, Judge, what's the point? Do we even have a Constitution anymore? I don't even think so. Honestly, in practice, I don't actually think so. Chutkan just changed the word and just said, no, it means the opposite of what it says. It's like, oh. And then she says, Alexander Hamilton didn't say what he said on the page preceding. I'm losing my mind. I thank you, Knox, for commiserating here, along with everyone else here. Chris says, hey, what's up, Chris? A Memo for 3 months, 1/3 of the way to a baby, 0.3333 repeating. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Good to see you, Chris. And thanks for being a Memo. Hey, what's up? We got John Allen, the Hunter's Crack Dealers, joining us, and clipping this one from Lucy Lou Lane. What's up, Lucy Lou? That looks like a new name. Welcome to our locals community. Says, my new favorite show. Thank you, Rob. Well, Lucy Lou Lane, thank you for being here. I'm glad you made it over to our locals. Super fun. And we're just getting started here. It's going to be it's going to be a busy week. Good to see you, Lucy. Thank you. We got Dennis P. is here. Says, how soon can the Supremes weigh in? Are we waiting for the Dems to stack the court first? So this is a good question, Dennis. Like, I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith in the Supreme Court, if I can be perfectly honest with you. And I know that's depressing to say and even think. Believe me. You think like, oh, it's a 6-3 court. Finally, they're going to come in here and settle this. It's like, hold on, man. Hold on. I get very nervous about this issue in particular, because if the Supremes do something that agitates the deep state, they lose power by causing the Dems to stack the court, right? The court operates through legitimacy, more than the other branches. Other branches have power. Congress has the power of the purse. Executive branch has feds who come just raid you. SCOTUS doesn't have that. They've got legitimacy and credibility. So if they get squirrely, like with Obamacare and other opinions, that get very nervous about it. So I don't know. Are they going to take the case before the trial starts in March? Trial's in March. It's December. So it's going to be here any minute. I'm not optimistic necessarily that they get in this before the March trial starts, or maybe that is the justification for postponing the March trial, right? Is that it's on appeal. SCOTUS has accepted something and scheduled a brief, and so stays this or something. I don't know. But it's going to be close. Either way, it's going to be close. I think anybody who's predicting is just shooting from the hips, honestly. Here, Knox says, how would, quote, the end of a presidency differ from the beginning or the middle? This woman wrapped legal theory in circles. That's a good question, Knox. Yeah, that's a great question. I think she was just trying. So Chutkan was trying to identify like this escape hatch where the president could like commit a bunch of crimes and then get out of Congress and get out of office with like, murdering a bunch of people and embezzling $1 trillion and probably ransacking the treasury. He'd just probably just load up his car with bags of cash from the Federal Reserve and just drive away, and you're done. And can't do anything about it. Good job, Chutkan. Yeah, she's trying to create an opinion that she wants. Bad Poet is here over on the Rumbles. What's up to our friends on the Rumbles? Who's joining us over there? Janek, we got Laura 5000. What's up, Janek? Army Brat. We got Dog Digger. I see Mr. and Mueller's over there. And Jacob's over there. Challenger's over there. Man, it's good to see everybody. Okay, so a Bad Poet says, so we can expect a conservative court to impeach Bribham any day now, right? Well, the conservative court wouldn't do the impeaching. That would be a congressional function. And I think James Comer said, don't hold your breath on it. And Congress just threw out a Republican from their own caucus, even though Senator Menendez is still, carrying gold bars around in his jacket pockets in the Senate. So the impeachment thing, probably a long shot, honestly. Now that all this has happened, now that McCarthy's gone, now that Comer's here, now that Santos is gone, probably going to be a long shot. We'll see. Also hysterical that the left is saying 80-year-old will be president forever. Such a joke talking point. Yeah, it's like Trump's not going to be around forever either, Liz. Relax. But she needs to sell books, man. And she needs those pieces. Did you see the news anchors love it. It's like when, you go out to dinner with an old friend and you talk about all like the amazing things and you just get really excited. You're just animated. It's like that. Like Liz is coming over to talk about the insurrection. Oh my gosh. Break out the nice wine. Okay, so good to see you, a bad poet. This one from NY says, meanwhile, the prosecution has gone horribly, so much that New York counties, the Democrats have made the case for Trump through these overreaching cases. I think Trump's filings are quite good. And man, I have my doubts about both cases. The DC cases make me very nervous just because it's DC. But I think it's a weak case. I mean, I think they're both weak cases. NY, other than the fact that they got the forum right with DC. NY says, it's going so bad that Democrats did not know who to run for New York Congressional District 3, which is my home district. They'll lose in the polls by 10 points, anyone that they run. Ew, that's good news. Well, shout out to your district. Got some people waking up there. That's good. Ray K, a member for 22 months. A member for 22 months. I don't even know how many babies that is. Two and something, right? 2 and change. So Ray K, thanks for being a member for 22 months, says Zulu is useful to help people defend their positions, which is a good comment. Yeah, and Zulu, takes the opposite opinion of a lot of the things we talk about here. And we appreciate the difference of opinion, right? And so Ray K, I think, is in agreement with that. And so thanks, Ray K, and shout out to Zulu. Shout out to Ray K. Thanks for being a membo and for livening up the chat a bit. We got NY says, it's Jen Psaki's old boss, Obama, who wiretapped and threatened journalists and their families. Yeah, didn't he take out a group of kids too? I mean, it's like, what are they talking about? They're just, I don't know. Is it delusion? I don't know what it is. Chris is here. What's up, Chris? Says, thank you, Robert. We really appreciate all the information you bring us. Another great broadcast. Thank you, Chris. Very nice of you to say that. Thanks for being a member and for swinging by. It was a busy day, a lot of reading today, but I think it's going to get busier, man. So just for context, things do slow down during the holidays. Okay. The courts, judges all have to go to their conferences. We have conferences scheduled. We have to do our research. We have to do our year-end case briefings and filings for our court administrator. You got to get your numbers in for your court administrator. Give me a break. For 2 weeks? So they all take a lot of time off, right? Not always. There are some courts. I mean, I've been in court on Christmas Eve before. It's kind of a wild thing. Some courts go right up to the day, if it's on a Wednesday or something. So it's pretty interesting. Anyways, so it's going to be busy regardless. We're going to be here, Chris, and these efforts are going to carry on, my friend. Thank you for supporting us as we get to it. This one is from the NY. It says, how can the court conclude that his speech spawned the riot? Wouldn't that have to be an evidentiary hearing? Well, so yeah, it depends on which case we're talking about. But on the lawsuit, the civil lawsuit case, they're kind of saying that, this can go back down and Trump can do discovery and maybe provide some evidence on that. And they can flesh that issue out a little bit. Is what that last opinion was talking about. So in other words, the motion to dismiss is not ripe now, but it might be ripe later once you're able to unpack this issue a bit more and litigate with discovery and so on. And so thanks, good doctor. We got 1R5 says, I thought malicious prosecution was unlawful. Turns out it's not even that uncommon. Looks like I was wrong. Well, we're seeing it all up and down in this case. So first of all, you're right. It's not that uncommon. I mean, we see it, I think, with the DOJ every day against J6ers they have a bloodlust and a bloodthirst in their eyes to go after people who literally meandered through the Capitol. It's wild. People who are not even in the Capitol for years. And then when the court gives them an insane sentence, they also turn around and we want more, please. Because I think they get, I think there are some people in this world that feel empowered when they disempower other people. there's equations. There are some people who are life force suckers. There are other people who are enhancers, right? Who are collaborative, where 1 + 1 = 3. There's other people where it's like they're subtracting, okay, from you. Whenever they're near you, they're subtracting from you. And there's a lot of that in our justice system. People score, it's like a scoreboard, and the humanity gets evaporated out of the system, especially if you're in DC surrounded by your other cult-like lunatics who are on the same team as you. So you're right. It's not that uncommon, unfortunately. We've got NY says, wow, Cheney just dumped any goodwill that anyone had left for her father. No doubt about that. Was there any left? Did her father have any goodwill? I don't think so. Here, John Allen's over on the locals says, hey, Rob, and watching the Watchers chat, just wanted to give John McGarvey a shout out for being back from his, quote, cruise. Why the cruise quote? What was John doing? That makes it seem very suspicious, John. Are you in a secret assassin or something? What were you doing? And we appreciate all that he does for us. We are blessed to have him with us. Also, a shout out to Donut, Zach, V, KB, and the other mods for all that they do. Thank you all. We love the mods. John Allen is a mod amongst them. And thank you, John, for the nice comment. And shouting out John McGarvey. And yeah, whatever that cruise was. Did any terrorists get taken out that we don't know about? Good question. Patrick Parker's here, says, yeah, Liz Cheney's no longer in Congress anymore, so she needs to be quiet. Well, she's got a lot of books to sell, Patrick. A lot of them. And a lot of relevance. And my question is she going to run for office? Is she going to try to throw herself in the ring somewhere, some way, shape, or form? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Thanks, Patrick. Golden Gaming, been a member for 8 months. Ooh, we are about to pop Golden Gaming. One month away, and boom, it's going to be a little baby. And so, man, a member for 8 months, and that's the Fallout guy with giving us the thumbs up, which is a pretty fun game. I played Fallout Shelter, and that's the one where actually you make babies. I'm pretty sure you make babies in that game, so it's very appropriate. Member for 8 months, Golden Gaming. Thank you, Golden Gaming, for being here, and thanks for sending that lovely message in. Gideon K. Cross is here. Says, Chutkan's ruling seems like somebody getting a basic SAT reading comp question wrong. So good. You're right. It just seems too idiotic to become precedent. SCOTUS opinions that seem bad aren't nearly that stupid, in my opinion. I was getting frustrated reading her opinion today, like coming out of my seat, because she was saying things that she just refuted in the same document. So, yeah, it's wild. And I agree with you. I think SCOTUS is probably going to have fun with that. But she was trying to anchor this in. She was trying to make her little mark on history. I'm going to set the standard that no president gets a get out of free jail pass. Oh gosh, you're just not really aware of what's happening right now, are you? All right, thank you, Gideon. We got this one from Object Class Keeter, big one. Says 2000 to 2024, maybe longer before and after, will be remembered as the second Gilded Age. Man, that is a good comment, Object Class Keeter. We were talking about that this morning on our members only stream, talking about this bundling, unbundling, rebundling thing that's happening right now, how we went from kind of in the 50s, this era where things were a lot more centralized, right? We had a couple TV, agencies. We had a pretty homogenous culture and society, language, pretty homogenous, media, values, targets as a nation. A lot of that was kind of homogenized, and then it centralized, and then it decentralized, or we're in the process, I would say, of maybe unbundling and decentralizing. If 1950 was peak centralization, that's like peak nation state. That's like peak America. Everybody's together, and now we're unbundling, and the unbundling, I think, is going to happen for quite some time, and probably another before we get into a rebundling again. And unbundling and we also sort of rebundled in many ways. It's not all the same. So we shifted from a bundled media, we had 3 TV stations, to unbundled internet, where we had a bunch of different things, and then to a rebundled internet again. Right now it's Facebook, Google, Amazon, X, right, and some other platforms to rebundle. And we're probably going to unbundle from that again, because again, we can't trust the sources of the information. So I think we went through a very, very, I think I'd say the Gilded Age. I mean, we'll look back on it and we'll say it probably started to end in COVID. I would probably rewind that back a little bit, like to 2020. I think we're kind of probably just cresting like at the top, like, or slowly cresting. I think that things are going to get a little bit tricky in the foreseeable future. And I know I'm not alone on that. Object class, great comment. CF Rob, what's up? Christian Fellowship Rob says, Rob, every time you get started and lean back in your chair, do the drums, I like it. But for some reason, I keep watching, waiting, and hoping there not be a fail when you lean back and the chair breaks. When I do this, I know. Okay, so first of all, thank you for your concern, Rob. I also worry about that too sometimes, I have to tell you. Sometimes, you know, like sometimes I worry that, so the feet on the chair, it's like the 5-point star, you know? And you know, if you get those 2 feet, like if I get one of the feet that's directly back, I'm pretty good. But if I get the 2 feet that are like in this direction, I feel like, yeah, you know, this is a high quality chair, right? Okay, this is an expensive chair that I got, like to like be a professional person, you know, and so I'm hopeful that it doesn't happen. But if it does, it'd be for great content, and I wouldn't even be mad about it as long as I didn't end up permanently damaged. But thanks for the concern. Object Class Keeter, hey, he became a supporter. Awesome. So Object Class, yeah, we'll be talking more about that type of stuff. I think that the world is in an interesting dynamic right now. I think you keyed in on it. We got this one from John McGarvey. What's up, John McGarvey? Thank you for donating. Membos. We got Mike H is coming in. Clyde B. We got Daisy Girl W is joining us. Mainer's coming in. And we got Saffon in the house. All gifted membos courtesy of John McGarvey. And so YouTube members, don't forget to grab the Telegram link. So on YouTube, navigate over to the community tab section, scroll all the way down, grab Telegram. Join us for our members only after party, and we'll see you there shortly. We've got a Bad Poet says, a scary idea. The left accuses the right of what they are doing, so they keep saying Trump will take power forever. So what are they planning now? Right, if they're saying Trump is not going to leave office, some people wonder about that. Is Joe Biden going to leave office? Like, what if they just say that the election was rigged? What if they say the Russians did it, or the Chinese did it, or Trump did it, or whatever, and they don't leave, right? Or they just actually rig it and don't leave, like they did the last time. All right, Zulu's here. What's up, Zulu? Zulu is bringing in membos. We got, thank you, Zulu, bringing in Michael A., Tonil H., Greg E., and C. Warren, all coming in courtesy of Zulu in the house. Thank you, Zulu, and welcome aboard, new friends. We got this one from Jennifer Newman saying, good job. Thank you, Jennifer. Thanks for being here. Happy Monday to you. Thanks for being a membo. Hope you had a good job Monday yourself as well, and I appreciate the enthusiasm on that guy. Man, he's ready to rock. Thank you, Jennifer. Have a beautiful day. Thank you for that. John Allen says, what's up, John? He says, and Rob, thank you for all that you do for us. And yes, we missed you, brother. I missed you guys too. I hate missing the show, man. I hate missing it. But it was very, very good. John wants an update on some other things, and we'll certainly do that as well. Raymond's here, says, when is the DOJ going to use the same argument against Biden? Not. Well, because Joe Biden controls them. Biden was a presidential candidate when he held classified docs as a private citizen. Yeah, well, right. And he was a senator, and he was not ever the president. So he had classified materials when he should have never had them, right? That is absolutely criminal at the outset. Trump at least had justification for having his documents. So the DOJ is not going to do anything against Joe because he controls them and they hate Trump. And so he is their person, just like they helped cover up the Hunter Biden laptop. FBI, which is under the DOJ, or, you know, a subcomponent of the enforcement infrastructure, they had the laptop in December 2019. And they hid it all from us. And they let everybody say it was fake and from Russia. So they lied. We got Dolphin Fan is the man, bringing in new membos, 5 new membos from Dolphin Fan. What's up, Dolphin? Thanks for this. Happy Monday to you. Bringing in Mama Pillow, Stephen K. Snake Plissken is here. Oh man, things are about to get real. Eric V. and Lowell S. all coming in courtesy of Dolphin Fan is the man in the house. Christian Fellowship Rob says, I saw something. Says, quote, Nancy Pelosi said she's leaving the U.S. if Trump becomes president. I can't imagine she said that, but I know someone else did. Some other Hollywood person said that. If she really said that, she must be afraid of the weaponized justice coming back around to get after her. I would have to think that she did not say something like that. But I think other journalists probably have. Like Nancy's a congressperson, so she can't say that. Plus, she basically owns most of these people. But I think that certainly someone else has said that. I saw some other big person, some journalists, like Oprah or something. I don't know if she said it, but something like that. And Rob says, the left accuses the right of what they are doing when Obama is the one who has not left office. Good comment, Rob. Yeah, there was stories that Obama, right, is still living there in Washington, still kind of orchestrating and coordinating a lot of this stuff. And we know Joe Biden doesn't know where he is most of the time, so it makes sense. We got this one from a bad poet, says, all right, we'll leave that one. Bad poet's talking about something with treaty accords and some, WHO stuff in there. So we'll leave that one alone. But thank you, a bad poet, for sending that one. That's over on Rumble as well. And so, my friends, let's say hello to our friends on X before we go over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our after party. Let's see who is joining us on this platform. And it is great to see our friends over on the X. Who's watching? How many people are joining us? Oh my goodness! 35 viewers? I am pretty sure Elon is joining us. That's incredible. Shout out to our X friends. 35, that's like, I don't know, 6 or 7 times our normal. So it's out of control. What's up, Elon? So let's say hello to our friends on the X platform and see who is joining us. We got Fred, we got George, we got Pamela, Fiddler, and others. Okay, so Fred is here. He says, these leftist judges like Engoron, Chutkan, and others are enjoying themselves now, but I don't believe they're thinking about the way history will write about them. Very stupid. Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. Like, we were able to last this country many years without us going down this road, and here we are. Hey, this is one. Fred Pedamonte shared this one. Nevertheless, with the apostrophe double S's, Samuel Johnson's dictionary. It says, nevertheless, notwithstanding that. Okay, but they didn't put that in the Constitution. It doesn't have the apostrophe, does it? So is it different because they didn't put that word in? Although this says nevertheless. Like notwithstanding that. Oh gosh. Okay, she made it up. Here, JB says, fantastic analysis. Also crazy. What they are doing, thank you for clipping that for us, Fred. What they're doing to the law to get the bad man Trump, says this will backfire. The entire system will be taken down because of the brazen disloyalty to the country and to the Constitution. Absolutely true. Absolutely true, JB. I hope it's worth it for them because they're going to wreck the whole country. They're doing it. Outlier says, precedent set, boomerangs incoming. No doubt. George is here. Pamela says, wait a minute. If he was president at that time, which he is not, he can't be charged of any wrongdoing, regardless of legal or not. Correct me if I am incorrect. Well, so it's really illogical. So they're saying that he is guilty no matter what. Okay, no matter what he would try to do, they would get him for it. So, yeah. It's hard to make sense of it. Here, Phil Reno says, have you looked into Tariq Johnson's claims that J6 was an inside job? Yes, I followed Tariq, and I think he just released some good audio. So check out Tariq Johnson if you have not done that already. He's on X, and he's releasing a ton of good stuff. Bernie's here, says, wow, she's something. NY liberal, New York is a liberal cesspool is here, says the real criminal is legitimate corrupt fraud currently in the White House. And we got some other comments. George is here talking about the monthly payments. Yeah, we'll probably cover that. Biden got some monthly payments. I saw that on the, what was it? Hunter had a Wasco PC paying him, I think, 3 payments of $1,380. Hunter's people say that that was repayment for a truck, that was just a payment, just money that was Joe paid for a truck or something, and then Hunter was reimbursing him. Now that's curious because Owasco is the same entity that was getting a bunch of Hunter money and cash into it, going directly into Joe Biden's bank account. So we're very curious about that. And I've got the letter pulled up actually and saved already. So we'll probably get that tomorrow, probably on the Memo stream, and then we'll release it as a segment later. we'll see what the day looks like. NH Patriot is here. Striker Chris is here. Conservative Coach is here. And Regina's over there. It's good to see our friends on the X platform. And my friends, if you want to join the Watchers community over on X, we do have that here. We're almost at 1,000 membos. Woo, woo. Now, I think we're still waiting for Elon to tell us what to do with all this, but we're working on it. So I think it's important to connect with fellow watchers out there. If you're on the X, if you're, YouTube's a little harder out there, but X is a great place to connect with other watchers, right? Support them. If they're out there, follow them, like their stuff, trying to, help each other out there in the wild. And so this is a great place to congregate. And I'm sure we'll figure out what to do with it at some point. I think Elon is, I don't know if it's going to be a channel analog or what it'll be, but we're working on it. So that is it for us on the day, my friends. We are going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We'd love to see you there for our members only after party. A reminder that we've got all the PDFs, the newsletter, the segments get turned into show reports, all at robertgovea.com if you need any of that stuff. Field of Greens is the place to go to get your real healthy food. The vegetables want to be eaten, and so check it out, fieldofgreens.com. Don't forget to use code Robert so they know that we sent you. We want to thank our mods and our meme smiths who mod down the fort for us, clipping away. We got Donut Mind Me in the house, along with Dog Digger, Janik909, our friend John Allen. We got Zach Nichols, Beyond Geo, Zulu's here, Ronnie Cole, Playing Hooky, Just Cause, K-Bean, and Vienticus Prime modding down the fort for us, keeping things nice and orderly. We've also got our friends, our meme smiths, Geegum Geegum, Nathan, N810, along with Sleepy Dog Lee in the house. And so that, my friends, is it for us on the day. We are going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members only after party. We'd love to see you over there, but if not, that's all right, because we're going to be back here tomorrow. Right? It's going to be a Tuesday, and we've got a lot to get to. And we need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.